Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Season 4, Episode 11, special episode of the Argo Bounce Podcast show with Chris Pomay and Nick Small, a weekly independent talk show devoted to the CFL's 19-time Grey Cup champion, your Toronto Argonauts. And I want to say thank you, everyone, for watching this live streamed and also on our audio platforms as well. And I hope everyone's doing well on this Tuesday, September 9th, 2025. This kind of a last-minute special show with me and Nick, and a lot of Argo's news going on today from BMO Field with MLSE and, of course, the Buffalo Bills. Nick, how are you doing? Thanks for joining me tonight.
Yeah, doing great as always, Chris. Appreciate everybody for tuning in a little bit of last minute. Lots to talk about. Football is now officially in full swing. If you haven't been watching since June like I have or Chris has, well, you've been missing out a lot on the CFL season. The OUA is into their third week with some amazing games, including the best game probably no one watched this week, as well as our friends south of the border have kicked off their season. We've got college football going on in the States. We've got the NFL with some pretty spectacular games that have gone on this week. Some big wins by the Philadelphia Eagles, the Buffalo Bills, and the Minnesota Vikings, among others that have just happened. Lots and lots and lots of things to talk about, including some big news regarding the Toronto Argonauts and the Buffalo Bills.
Before we get to that, we have somebody watching, George Brown, who I hope you meet one day. Nick, he filled in for you a couple weeks ago, but George Brown is watching from St. Louis, Missouri, and he wants to say, hi, guys, early show this week. And by the way, George is a huge Argonaut fan, but he also he went to the Argos home opener at BMO Field back in June. He also went to the LA Rams, his other beloved team in LA, and he was telling me, George was telling me that when he went to the Rams games in St. Louis, when they were there, they were really passionate fans, but out in LA, it's a different environment. And I told him LA had no team for almost 30 years, and most people in LA found different teams. I find even the Chargers and the Rams, most of the fans that come to those games at SoFi Stadium aren't Rams or Charger fans. They're fans of the other teams. So, but George is a huge football junkie, and I want to say, George, thanks for watching. George, if you have a question for Nick or myself, please type it in the comments section. And I sent everybody the link to StreamYard. So if there's anyone out there that wants to join us live, click on the StreamYard link that I sent on Facebook and Twitter X as well.
That's a very interesting comparison too, because not only did LA get a team, they got two teams back, and to make that kind of jump, it's not to get ahead of the game, but if with this big MLSE announcement, if like kind of the broader long-term thinking from MLSE is, maybe that'll get Toronto, whoever's in charge, a franchise in the NFL. Well, don't forget, there's a lot of fans of many different teams at the NFL. There's not everyone's going to be a Buffalo Bills fan automatically. I mean, you're a prime example of that. So I know friends within the Argos fan base alone who are, I know Dolphins fans, I know Raiders fans, I know Chargers fans, I know Chiefs fans, I know Lions fans, I know Vikings fans, I know Packers fans, I know Patriots fans. So there's 8 teams right there. So yeah, a lot of different fan base to try to appease with one team.
Hey, Nick, and I want to say this too. The Bills Toronto series from 2008 to 2013 at the Rogers Center Skydome, it was a complete failure. They thought, okay, we'll put the Bills in Toronto 1 or 2 games a year. We're going to have 55,000 Bills fans. And most of the time, the games at the Rogers Center, the teams that were playing the Bills were fans of the other team. And to me, Toronto is not a Bills town. It's an NFL city. There's so many teams in the NFL, obviously, 32, and I find Toronto similar to LA, where they don't really have one particular team. Everybody has their own teams in Toronto, and that's part of the reasons why the Bills didn't. That experiment in Toronto failed miserably from 08 to 13. Go ahead.
I don't know if Canada's an NFL market, period, because like you look at when they had that preseason game with, I think it was the Packers and Raiders, if I'm not mistaken. They originally were going to play in Saskatchewan, and then there was something messed up with the field, so then they played in Winnipeg. Not many people went to that game either. So, and again, if you're for the NFL, the prestige of the NFL, then it shouldn't matter if it's the Bills playing, if it's and who they're playing. You're going because it's the NFL. And yeah, to your point, those whole years when they did the Bills and TO experiment, they don't. And it's really interesting as it's kind of snowballs with this whole thing. Like the only place then that we've proven that an NFL team can play now in Toronto is BMO Field, which TFC and Toronto play. And we know they can't do the Skydome anymore because it's permanently fixed to baseball. And as we've seen with the Argo schedule next season, there is no place in the entire GTA that a professional football franchise can play in other than BMO Field. And it is pretty much booked up.
And it's too small because the NFL wants at least 60,000 or more seats for a stadium. And BMO Field, even renovated, is only going to be 45. So I don't think they could put 60,000 in BMO Field if they wanted to. Nick, before we get into more of this, Buffalo Bills, they just, New York State, City of Buffalo, they got a new stadium opening up next year. $2.1 billion. Now, the Bills COO today said on social media and on TSN that they're considering playing more games in Canada. How do you feel if you live in Buffalo, Western New York, and your money $2.1 billion for a new stadium, and the organization saying, we might come back and take 1 or 2 games away from you to come back to Toronto and Canada? I would be, if I was a Bills fan, and especially living in Buffalo and Western New York, I'd be pissed off saying, we just built you a $2.1 billion stadium, and now you're talking about taking 1 or 2 games possibly away from us again to go to Toronto or Canada. I think that's absolutely ridiculous. And also, I'm gonna give you my 2 cents on this whole marketing thing. MLSE wants to get into the NFL. Well, corporations apparently are not allowed to own NFL teams. So Vince Carter and McGrady now are small minority, I think 10% owners of the Buffalo Bills. I think this agreement is just a way for MLSE to open the door for the NFL and to promote the Buffalo Bills here. I'm sorry, you own the Toronto Argonauts of the Canadian Football League. Your priority should be the Toronto Argonauts and the Canadian Football League. And then they're having a Bills Day on October 4th. The focus should be on the Argos and Tiger Cats and the Toronto Argonauts organization instead of it being focused on the Bills. And I don't know. I personally think this partnership with the Buffalo Bills, I don't think it's good long term for the Argonauts or the Canadian Football League, in my opinion.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that I'd like to dissect and talk about. The first point, of course, as you mentioned, being that building the new stadium and then losing games to play elsewhere. It's not just a Bills thing. Like we kind of have seen that with other teams in the NFL that have left to play games in London, England, or in Mexico. We've seen that, I think, with the Raiders and the Rams, or the Chargers, who have both built brand new multi-billion-dollar stadiums very recently. So at least in the sake, if like Buffalo's going to go in Toronto, those ultra uber diehards have the option to go across, and it's not like the other way it's any easier either. Like I had a buddy who went and sat in the end zone for a Bills game last season. He paid more money to sit in the to pay for parking. I think he paid between $60 and $70 US for parking. He paid more to park for the Buffalo game than it would have been to have bought tickets in the same area where I'm sitting at BMO Field for an Argos game. To talk to the other points, the marketing, the Bills game, that I agree on 100%, that I really do not like. That you really should be taking the best rivalry in the CFL, arguably one of the best rivalries in professional football, if not all sports. You should be marketing that rivalry, especially in the fact that this is a series deciding game. And depending on how they do in the standings, not only is the Harold Ballard Trophy on the line, but the whole playoffs could be on the line. Who has home field advantage, who has bragging rights, all of that stuff that carries a significant amount of momentum in a series where the two teams are right now only 2 wins apart of each other in the standings. The thing about it, though, that it has been a tough pill to swallow for me, and it's something that I know a lot of other diehard old guard Argo fans are resistant on, but that's the really huge problem. It comes down to two. Well, the one fundamental thing that this partnership is trying to do, and it's building affection of football among youth in Canada. And in that respect, there's two components that you really have to look at. Number one, it has to do with the tackle football game. And unfortunately, and I know certain people will disagree with me on this, but tackle football in the GTA is not doing well. And you can see that just by looking at your local football leagues. When about 15 years ago, give or take, when I played in the Mississauga Football League, there was 7 or 8 teams, if you include Oakville as well. There were 7 to 8 teams playing just within Mississauga in a league that was entirely based in Mississauga, 7 to 8 teams. Now they're down to 2 teams and they have to travel playing in Kitchener, playing in London, playing in Windsor, playing in Oshawa, playing in Kingston, like playing all across Southern Ontario now, whereas they used to play, within an hour of each other. The second component is the growth of flag football, and that is way more prevalent. You see that flag football has exploded in popularity, and
Yes.
the CFL has already lost to NFL Canada in that respect. I know friends, colleagues who have kids in NFL programs or in flag programs that the NFL is affiliated with, and reps will go up to them. It's like, hey, what team are your kids a fan of? Oh, the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh, the Buffalo Bills, the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, here's some hats. Here's a jersey. Here's all this, like, $300 worth of stuff. Go wear it. Go support your favorite NFL team. That's something that the CFL just doesn't have leverage in. Another stat I do want to bring in real quick to go back on football as well. Not only does it affect the youth levels, but it affects the high school levels as well. This is just speaking in Peel because I know it better, but you can probably apply it to like the Toronto School Board and whatnot. In ROPSA, the Peel League, there were 32 teams across the high school level from 2016 to 2017. In 2024 to 2025, that number is half. There's only 16 across all divisions, and that number's only getting smaller. I drove by Arundel just today, and the football field replaced with turf, no goalposts. It's entirely designed for soccer and for flag football. They're just not designed for tackle football anymore, and tackle football programs across the country are dying.
I guess because of the cost of it as well. But do you feel the CFL has kind of failed in that sense? And why hasn't the CFL kind of started up their own flag football over here?
100%. And I think what it really has to do is money. Like Stuart Johnson said on his opening days, I think only 3 of the 9 franchises are making money. And even with the revenue sharing program, you're competing with a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. For the NFL to hand out $300 worth of jerseys and hats and stuff to some kids, it's peanuts to them. But for a CFL team, that's a ton of money for them if they're giving every flag football program, if they're giving out 20, 30 jerseys across the GTA to, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 different teams. Like that money ends up adding up very quick. For a CFL organization to donate $100,000 worth of equipment to all those teams, it's a lot harder than a multi-billion-dollar organization like the Bills or any team in the NFL, frankly.
We got more comments on Instagram. George Brown says the Argos carry the city of Toronto in championships. Leafs haven't won 67. That's correct. Connor Sauve, one of your friends, says hitting the nail on the head, Nick. And then George Brown goes, if the Argos fold and the NFL gets a team in Toronto, then the CFL will fold up. One thing to George Brown is for an NFL team to come to Canada, it's going to cost billions of dollars to bring them to Canada or Toronto. And also, Toronto does not have the stadium. The Rogers Centre Skydome is strictly baseball now, and it's too small for the NFL anyway, so that's not feasible. BMO Field, there's no way you can make it a 60,000 seat stadium, and there's no land left in Toronto to build a 70,000 seat stadium. And can you imagine, Nick, let's say Toronto does get an NFL team, it's going to cost $3 billion at least because our dollar is very crappy compared to the American dollar. $3 billion. Do you think the owner of the team is going to be charging $40 for a ticket? You're going to be looking at $1,000 or more for a ticket. I don't think financially it's feasible to have an NFL team in Toronto right now.
Yeah. So here's my stance on it. So the whole thing with the Argos being replaced with an NFL team will absolutely never happen. And here's the paradox that MLSE and the NFL and the CFL are all caught in. If the Argos fold, the CFL is dead. If the Argos fold, Canada will never get an NFL team. If Canada wants an NFL team, first and foremost, the Argos need to be a successful, packed barn every game, money making franchise. If that does not happen, if you're looking at it in your Roger Goodell and the executive board of the NFL, you're looking at a market that doesn't like football at any level. Because between the Bills experiments and the Argonauts, what it's saying is that people don't go to sporting events. And even with the affluence of the NFL, the prestige of it, it isn't working. And you see that across other sports too. Soccer is supposed to be the latest and greatest hot thing with the FIFA World Cup coming in. You go to FIFA Toronto games and they're not sold out. Like I will admit that they do have better attendance than Argos games right now, but they are not sold out. So until it gets to that point, till MLSE can prove that they can manage the Argos to be a full and popular franchise within the Toronto market, the NFL will never look to putting a team there.
By the way, Nick, the Detroit Lions have taken over the Windsor and London area. So southwestern Ontario, the Detroit Lions have gotten that territory. And Connor Sauvé has another comment. The Bills just legitimized Toronto being their territory. No chance they allow another team in the region. But the problem, Connor, is Toronto is not a Bills town. It's an NFL city. People I see in Toronto or I talk to, they're Patriots fans, they're Commanders fans. There are some Bills fans there, but it's not like there's a million Buffalo Bills fans in Toronto. And the Bills series in Toronto from 08 to 13 filled. And half the time, half the stadium when they play at the Rogers Center, it was either not sold out or half the crowd was for the other team. So I don't think it's going to happen. And then Connor says exactly, Chris, is quite literally impossible. George Brown, I can't keep up with comments, but I don't know if the NFL will find a way. But look what they did to St. Louis. I totally agree with you, George. But the NFL wanted to get back to LA, and they basically used St. Louis for 20 years until they could get the SoFi built in LA, in my opinion. Go ahead, Nick.
The only way they could maybe make it work, and I don't know if this is where they're channeling hard into like the Raptors for. I don't think it really works for TFC. It works for the Raptors and maybe the Blue Jays. If you look at it from this perspective, is that the way they market those two franchises as we the North, Canada's team against the world, against the American teams, especially in this big, larger political conflict between Canada and the US. That's the only other way I could see you maybe marketing
Nick,
it.
Wi-Fi issue. We'll try something. So hopefully we can get Nick back on.
So,
are you back, Nick?
Yeah. So marketing it within this, sorry, I'll repeat myself. Marketing it like they do with the Raptors, we the North, and the Blue Jays with Canada's team. But that's not something that can happen overnight because, like you said, everybody who's an NFL fan in Canada and especially in the GTA already has a favorite team. It would have to be marketed in some way where and built over generations, at least one probably. And that's to hope that they don't lose the franchise like Montreal lost the Expos or Vancouver lost the Grizzlies. It would require that kind of building up that fan base to have sort of some sense of national unity, which may work in this political climate, but I'm also kind of skeptical about it too. So
Connor Sauvé says you're not wrong, Chris. I feel this deal with the Bills is to aim further to promote the Bills in the area. But how's that helping the Toronto Argonauts organization out? It's basically MLSE wants to use the Bills to promote the NFL and the Bills in their area. But to me, they should be focused on the Toronto Argonauts. And the problem right now is to own a professional sports team in the NFL or the CFL, you have to have deep pockets. And like you said, Nick, a lot of the teams in the CFL aren't making money. Credit to Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment. They saved the franchise. They are paying the bills. But long term, I don't know if they're going to keep the Argos. I don't think they want to keep the Argos around. I think their mandate, and this is my opinion. This is my opinion. It's not the opinion of the Toronto Argonauts or the Canadian Football League. I think Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment's mandate is to get more involved in the National Football League and eventually own an NFL team at some point in the future.
Well, the mandate for MLSC is to make money. That's the period, the all end all stop. The problem, I think, where like you're looking at it, and the way I've looked at it from people I've talked to, the problem is that the status quo of what they've done over these last couple seasons, it's moved the needle, but it hasn't resolved the problem, and they can't keep doing what they've always done because doing it hasn't worked long term. So I think where they're coming from is they're trying a different perspective, and if getting the Buffalo Bills in but continues to make the Argos brand present, that's what's going to have to be key in terms of making this partnership work. It's got to really heavily be, it can't just be Buffalo Bills. It has to be Buffalo Bills with the Toronto Argonauts. And I think that's what that partnership is, them really leaning heavily into, so that there's more exposure from both markets. And maybe that will provide the Argonauts the fiscal abilities for these opportunities where they can now be like, hey, you're a big Argos fan. Well, here's opportunities related to Argonauts. And it's not like the Argos haven't been doing it before. Like there's been tons of opportunities and partnerships with youth programs among Argos players. But I think that's where I'm hoping at least that this partnership is really going to help grow the flag football scene in Toronto. Because like when you think about it, it's going to be really hard for the next 6 months to get, I don't know, Josh Allen or whoever from the Bills to come out to Toronto to talk to kids about this, that, and the others. But by November, the Argonauts season has opened up, and now they're more accessible and able to do things like that in the community. So I'm hoping that it can lead to something like that, because at the end of the day, like I don't want to enter this thing in pure skepticism as it isn't going to work. I don't want to go to it as a super old guard, like it's going to kill the CFL, because it's not going to just suddenly, like tomorrow, that the Argos are going to fold and the CFL is going to be gone. But it's trying to understand how we can get better results at it that improve the Toronto Argonauts.
Nick, one point, by the way. I had season tickets to the Bills back in 2008 because they were only $500 for the whole year. Now you look at a Bills game and you're looking at $300 US for a cheap seat. $300 US is like $425 Canadian, and parking is $60-$80. One thing, Nick, they're promoting the Bills in Toronto, okay, and using the Argos. Do you think the Buffalo Bills are going to actually promote the Toronto Argonauts and the CFL down in Buffalo? I've been to Buffalo many times. 98% of them don't know anything about the CFL. 98% don't know anything about the CFL, and 98% of them have never even heard of the Toronto Argonauts. And when Doug Flutie became a Bill, they're like, Toronto Argonauts. So this cross promotion, if they're going to do it, they can try it, but I don't think it's going to work on the Buffalo side of the border. So, and to be honest, all these kids know more about the Bills and the NFL than they do the Toronto Argonauts. So to me, their focus should be marketing football, tackle, flag football, and the Toronto Argonauts. In my opinion, I don't think this is going to work with the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how it's necessarily going to go on like the Buffalo side of the border. I think that's kind of really the big question on getting fans, if it's just strictly with like youth programs, or if there's going to be a concerted effort to also try to encourage Buffalo area fans to come to Toronto to watch the Argonauts play. It would be really cool, because I think with some of the criticisms that we've seen, though, like there's also been some more interest now from American fans to take some interest in the CFL and watch it who haven't previously. So maybe there is that opportunity. Like, hey, you've seen CFL, you've heard of it now, and you've seen a couple games on TV. Why not come to Toronto to experience it in person? It's worth a shot, because what they're doing right now it hasn't worked, because BMO Field isn't full with 25,000 fans a game, and so let's give it a benefit of the doubt. Let's give it a year and see how it evolves over time, because I like I said, I don't think it's going to lead to the Argonauts completely collapsing or anything like that. But to my other point, it has to result in some positive success for the Argos if it's ever going to lead to it continuing. Because if nobody becomes interested in it and the Argos don't get any benefit out of it and MLSC doesn't get any benefit out of it from that side, then it's just going to fall apart and then it's going to go back to the way it was.
Richard Chung, I want to say Richard Chung, who's an Argo season ticket holder. Thank you, Richard, for watching as always. And Richard has a question. He goes, "Hi guys, the cost of a ticket with the Bills game has way price." Oh yeah, Richard, the price of a Bills ticket has gone up. I paid $506 US for a season ticket back in 2008. Now you're looking at $300 US for a nosebleed seat. And then George Brown and Connor Silver are watching on Instagram Live. Thanks, guys. George Brown said he paid $141 US for a 200 level seat at SoFi, and he considered that a ripoff. That's cheap compared to Buffalo. Connor Silva is now saying CFL fans have their own opinion on him, but they're using Chad Kelly as a connection between the two teams. Absolutely agree with you, Connor. I have more to say on that, but I won't say it tonight. And then Connor says, very mature response. Give it some time. I personally, right now don't think it will, but we'll see. But if you don't see any results in the next 2 years, I think the next 2 years are hugely important. But you know what's going to bother me, being an Argos fan? Going to BMO Field and they're going to see more Bills merchandise than the Argos merchandise. I can see that happening.
Oh, we lost Chris.
I'm still here.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. I don't know what that was, but okay.
No, it happens. No, I'm just ranting about stuff. Connor has a point too. I guess we should give it a chance. Nick, I'm not arguing with you and Connor, but I just don't. I personally, I'm very skeptical of this, like a lot of others are. And we have Daniel Aboye's father, Ty, Dr. Ty, watching. The word thumbs up. Thank you, Ty. We miss your son on the Argonauts. I miss him on your. I'm glad he's doing well with Ottawa, but we miss him on the Argos. Ty, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask. Nick's just having some issues with his Wi-Fi, so we're just me and Nick are having a lively discussion about the Argonauts deal with the Buffalo Bills and to cross promote both teams. You back, Nick?
You do raise an interesting point there about giving it a couple of years and wait and see. Let's not forget that next year the Argonauts have to screw off to play 2 games in Saskatchewan and Winnipeg as the home team, quote unquote. So it's, that impacts if the Bills are able to move in to play more games at BMO Field. So there's that whole other sack of worms to discuss as well. So it certainly is going to have to be a long-term project.
The Buffalo Bills, how do you explain to your fan base in Buffalo and Western New York after the taxpayers just paid $2.1 billion for a new stadium that we're going to move the team to Toronto for 1 or 2 games? I'd be pissed. Absolutely. There should be, I'm not a Bills fan, but there should be no excuse for that franchise to play games in Canada or Toronto unless it's like an international game, like the Eagles have had to play a game outside the link internationally to Spain or whatever. But for them to have to go back to Toronto for 1 or 2 games a year after they just spent $2 billion on this new stadium, I would be completely pissed as a taxpayer and a Bills fan in Buffalo, and that's
Oh,
my 2 cents on that.
yeah, I mean, that's probably why they're saying preseason right now or hinting towards that. Because don't forget, Toronto taxpayers also paid a ton of money to this BMO Field thing
Yes,
in
yes.
this soon to be international embarrassment that is known as the FIFA World Cup. But we'll wait until it
Oh,
starts so we can point at them and laugh.
by the way, I found this out from a source that FIFA has no plans on pulling the games from the States. So I'm going to tell people, you're adults. If you want to go to FIFA World Cup games in the States, that's fine. But you're going at your own risk. And personally, if I was a soccer fan, that is the last country I would want to go to right now, just with the political unrest over there, without making this into a political show. So that's my
Why,
sense on that.
why have one corrupt corporate body when you can have two?
George Brown's get another comment for us. I'd be okay with Toronto playing Hamilton as long as they weren't playing Hamilton.
Well, that's the problem. Like in the past years, when they had the Fort McMurray thing, the other game was a home game in Hamilton, and the majority of fans were Ticats fans who went just so they could boo the Argos. So, like you talk about the Argo Hamilton rivalry and why so many Toronto Argonauts and their fans live rent free in Ticat fans' heads, and that's exactly it. I said it during the Labor Day game. They're the only fan base in the world whose identity is more about booing their arch rival than it is on supporting their own team.
Nick, I'm going to put you on the spot with this question. Yes or no? Simple. Yes or no?
Yep.
Do you feel this work with cross promoting both teams, the Argos and Bills, will eventually help build up the Argos fan base and flag football and tackle football in Ontario going forward?
Yes, I have to believe it will.
I'm going to say no, so we'll leave it at that. I think Connor wants to give it a shot, and George, I'm not sure what he thinks on that, but I guess you got nothing to lose. But I give it a two. I give it 2 years. All right,
We've
Nick,
been like, okay,
that's on me.
that's okay.
It's Wi-Fi. It
I'll,
happens. It happens.
all I was gonna say is that the big problem is that we haven't been making money for the better part of 20-25 years. So got to try
Maybe
something
longer than that.
different.
Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I would
It's
say
hard.
more like 35 years.
Yeah, but I mean that's the challenge. Like
George
they got
Brown's
it. They
like,
got it.
I think the whole thing is over.
Mm.
Try it. Now, if they can bring Josh Allen to a game, obviously, by the way, before we change subjects, the Argos Tiger Cats game on Saturday, October 4th, I believe at 3 o'clock, is now being called Bills Day at BMO Field. So they want fans to come to see Chad Kelly, Jim Kelly, Doug Flutie. But is the focus really going to be on the Argos Tiger Cats game or the Buffalo Bills?
Well, bringing in alumni has typically worked in terms of dragging attendance up. Like we've saw that with the 150th anniversary game there. So there's kind of a precedent, and we saw that too earlier with the Chris Schultz all-time Argos thing with him and Nick Volpe. So it does seem to work that of like really old-timey loyal faithful Argos fans, it draws them out. The challenge is how do we bring newer younger fans out, and if this is one thing to connect it to Buffalo, give it a shot and see what happens. I like that they did it during the game against Hamilton? Not really. I think it would have been better suited for a game against someone like maybe Ottawa or Montreal rather than your biggest rival. Like that in itself should be its own marketing tool. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Making sure the Go Train works for that game might be a good idea too. Yeah, so even if we don't want Hamilton fans in there, it will draw more fans, and they're gonna come to the game regardless. So may as well make it easier for them.
1 point, Nick. The Toronto Blue Jays are at home that Saturday against the Orioles this Saturday. And the Blue Jays are in a pennant race right now. So you're going to have 44,000 fans focused on the Blue Jays. So do you expect the Argos to even draw 15,000 for this game against the Elks on John Candy Tribute Day?
Well, we don't have to worry about getting kicked out of our stadium if and playing games somewhere else if they do make the pennant race. So, and get into the playoffs. So, yeah, I think 15,000 is a pretty good number, and I really like the John Candy tribute that they're pushing towards. I did watch the trailer on at TIFF. I don't know if you did, but it looks like a really great documentary. So if you haven't already and you're listening, give it a watch. I think it's called "I Like Me," the John Candy story. So if you get a chance, go check it out because it's definitely worth
Yeah.
watching.
I've most people love the t-shirts, but the problem is I ideally think anyone who buys a ticket on Saturday for the game should get a T-shirt because you saw with the Grey Cup rings, you saw with some of the other promotions, it just got out of hand, and you see it in baseball too, where teams have promotions and they only give it to the first 10,000, 15,000 fans. People wait in line for 2, 3, 4 hours, and then when they get to the stadium, they get told there's no more items. They get pissed off, and in my opinion, I'm not blaming the Argos or the CFL for this. Anytime a team does a promotion, whoever buys a ticket gets that item. That way it stops this nonsense of 3, 4, 5 hour lineups, and then people get real testy when they can't get their item. And I know, Nick, we've talked about it before too. The promotion things is a good idea, but they do have their negative things. So it would have been nice to see them do at least 10,000 shirts. But from what I see, the shirts that they're giving out are nice ones as well.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't know. I kind of find it looks a little bit like too AI generated for my taste. Not that I don't like the intention behind it. Um, yeah, I mean 5,000 is a little bit of a low number, but like I think with it being a bit less kind of compared to the rings, I'm hoping that it's less of an angry mob kind of scenario like what happened in that game. And for the love of God, someone in MLSC, if you are listening, please, 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 absolutely, please have someone out there to enforce a lineup well before, like as the line is forming up, like 3 hours before the game. Don't come out 20 minutes before gates open, staring at the line and suddenly starting a whole new line for season ticket holders, because that will just tick everyone off.
I'm hoping there's no issues like that on Saturday too, Nick. I know the gates open at 1:30, but ideally it would be nice to see them open them at 1, but I understand 90 minutes, you know what? That's fair because I know the Blue
Well,
Jays and some baseball teams only open them 60 minutes. George
well,
Brown had another. Go ahead, Nick.
sorry, the challenge is that it's 90 minutes for the boatyard. The rest of the gates usually only open an hour before kickoff.
Okay.
So that's something that's really important. It's specific gate 3, I think it is in the southeast corner compared to all the others. Another reminder, Go Train is down this week. So if you do not, if you plan on going Go Transit, you either have to take a bus from Clarkson or Oakville, I think, to Union Station and then take a train to Exhibition from Union and back, and then take the bus from Union back to Clarkson or whatever after the game. The other alternative is that you go to your closest TTC, or you drive down. So keep that in mind. It is going to be a bit of a pain. So I suggest if you're going to drive down and tailgate, make your way early.
George Brown's got another comment from Missouri. He goes, "I got pushed at Yankee Stadium from a fan for the hockey jersey. He still got one, and so did I. And unfortunately, sometimes these giveaways and promos, you can get the worst out of people as well.
100%.
But I am happy to say that the team has done something. I've seen this the last couple home games where if a fan catches a football, they offer the fan a mini football signed by a player on the team, and I think that's a nice gesture too.
Yeah, we've been even the John Candy thing, like we've been bugging them for a John Candy something related to him for a long time. So to finally get one is a nice thing too.
Okay, Nick, let's get to the latest news. This is from Justin Dunk from Three Down Nations X account today. Are you surprised Nick Arbuckle is getting the start on Saturday versus the Elks?
Yeah, I heard about that. Well, I witnessed it. I watched I was at practice today, fortunately, so I got to see it. Now that we've kind of seen what's happened, yeah, I'm not too surprised that they're sticking with Nick Arbuckle. I know we kind of had that discussion back and forth last week on what to see, and I think Adam Rita, our special guest, if you didn't already know from last week, he offered a lot of good insight about how Chad Kelly is the long term guy, but they're riding the hot hand, sticking with Nick Arbuckle. There is a lot of time for Chad Kelly, even if this year doesn't go well. And I think whether or not he dresses, like it's certainly a good insurance policy to have that if Nick Arbuckle stays hot, great, and we keep rolling, or if bad things happen, not that you hope they do, you've got Chad hopefully prepared enough that he can go in.
Do you feel Chad Kelly will dress for this game on Saturday against Edmonton as the number 2 quarterback, and Dimwitty might have some plays called for Chad, just break him in slowly?
Yeah, that's kind of what I think would happen. Of course, you never know, nothing's set in stone, but I noticed it seemed to me in practice, Chad did take a couple more reps than he has in weeks past. So I think they're trying to get to it. But Dimwitty in his press conference today at practice made a good point that with the way Arbuckle's been playing, it's that trying to find that right balance. That yeah, you want to start to give Chad a few more reps, but if Arbuckle's still going to be your number one going in, you have to still give him the bulk of it. And I think the way practice went today, I thought it went extremely well. I was really happy with what I saw from the offense, regardless of who was in at quarterback. They were making some really good throws, a lot of great reads, great completions. I thought it was a really really good practice from an offensive standpoint, and I think they're in a really good mindset. And keep in mind that's also missing two of their top wide receivers in DeMonte Coxie and Davaris Daniels, both with some pretty significant injuries that could keep them sidelined for a while.
Nick, I want to get your thoughts on running back Spencer Brown. I guess Ben Grant on his account said he's on the injured list. How big of a loss would that be if Spencer Brown can't play? Because to me, the last 2 games, the running game has picked up. And Brown had, 95 yards rushing against Hamilton on Labor Day and had another 90 yards receiving. So he had, 180 yards purpose offense. So how much of a loss would that be? And what's the latest on McMahon?
Yeah, it would be pretty significant. I did see both Spencer Brown and Deontay McMahon in carrying the ball for reps with the Argos. Um, One guy I will also shout out who took a couple reps today, who looked really good, Penny Boone on the practice squad. I think he only signed a week or two ago. So I want to give kudos to him because he looked really good running the ball. And yeah, it would be a pretty significant obstacle if yet again they go through another back down. Someone get Dr. Ty a call and see if we can get Daniel back, maybe. But yeah, it would definitely be a challenge if Brown and McMahon both were unable to go. But I gotta think that with it being only Tuesday, I think it's just the nature of the position with the running back being very intense and physical, that you're trying to limit them through the week so that they're as rested as you can get them for game day.
Kelly, let's say Kelly dresses as a number 2 Saturday. Which quarterback, Doge and or the other guy, what happens to them on the roster? Do they one of them go down to the practice roster? I can't see the team keeping 4 quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, not to mention that they have Max Dugan as well on the practice roster, so that's a pretty big one. Like yeah, it kind of the toss up is going to be between Horn and Jarrett Dagey. I think it ultimately comes down to it based on however they determine in practice. I think it's going to be either if they think Jarrett Dagey as kind of an experienced quarterback is worth keeping versus Tucker Horn, someone who's kind of a future prospect, kind of developing kind of quarterback. The same way that NFL teams would look at undrafted quarterbacks, guys like whether it's Nathan Rourke or Taylor Algersma, that like they see them as a very long term guy. I will shout out Dave Naylor on TSN, who I had a really great talk with today about this very thing, and I can see how these discussions in the NFL looking at these kind of work in progress long term guys not someone that you can suddenly bring up and have him play and throw 400 yards in a game. That's kind of the challenge, and that applies to CFL too. It's why you haven't seen Tucker Horn take a single rep, despite people who said earlier in the season, "Oh, they should give Tucker Horn a chance." Well, this is why you don't. So, we'll and Morgan in Montreal is another good example where Montreal's had to because they've had no other choice. And this Hamilton game, he was just, for lack of a better word, horrible. So, yeah, I would think that they would probably cut Daggy, assuming Chad was ready, because you have two more than capable playing starting quarterbacks, and then you have Daggy or Horn still as this long-term project, and then whatever you want to consider with
Max
with,
Dugan.
with Dugan. So that's kind of how I look at it. But maybe they could do the other way if they don't think Tucker Horn, after all they've seen, and he's not ready enough, then they might switch and keep Daggy in as a kind of third insurance policy. So we'll see what happens.
Nick, want to talk to you about Mackay Polk. How much of a difference does he make with this receiving core? And since Coxie and Daniels are going to be out for a while, apparently, Polk could be. You see Polk being the number one receiver on this team.
Yeah, I mean, number one might be a little tricky because, like, we've seen such good play from other wide receivers. Everybody's had great flashes of brilliance. And I think that's what's been really great about both, whether it's been Chad Kelly or Nick Arbuckle. They're really good at spreading the ball around. So there really isn't always a number one guy. But for Polk to come in when he did, especially when Coxie went out, that's been a huge addition and kind of the 1-2 punch up the middle between Mackay Polk and Kevin Mittal. They're both really strong physical backs that are capable of really attacking the middle. And then you've got Hirschlow, Ungerer, Brissett, who can all kind of attack on the outside. So it's a really good scenario to have. And kind of like I think you said before, it's only made one of, if not the best wide receiving core in the CFL even better.
Nick, what are some keys to an Argos win over a very improved 5-7 Edmonton Elks team that is battling for a playoff spot? This is going to be like a playoff game Saturday because the Argos in Ottawa are now tied with 4 wins and they're only 1 win behind Montreal. And Edmonton is battling for their playoff lives. So, thoughts on what are some keys for an Argos win over Edmonton?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is going to kind of be exploiting a lot of the injuries that Edmonton themselves is dealing with, especially on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of guys, funny enough, that were former Argos are all kind of pending or on the injured list. Uh, yeah, we've seen Jake Serezna, Jared Brinkman are on there. And then I think Javon Leake was on the list. So I think where it's going to really come to is you're going to have to attack a weaker defense that Edmonton has. I don't think their secondary is quite up there. I don't think their linebacking core is quite where it needs to be. And they've got a lot of injuries on their D line. So you're really going to have to try to put up points against them, something that they really weren't able to do last time. Because like when I brought up that list of all those games where the Argos were putting up 30 something points or more and still lost, the one that was the outlier that they didn't was against Edmonton. They only put up 20 points, I believe. So I think that's what's really going to be the biggest key. And then, yeah, defensively, I mean, I think the big concern continues to be the secondary. Like they've got to be able to do some of the ball hawking that they did. And I mean, it's hard to admit it, but after 12, 13 weeks, like you kind of have to admit now that if you haven't seen it already, that their secondary is clearly not what it was last year. So they just got to find ways to get better because as I've said at work sometimes, no savior can just fall out of the skies and do the work for you. You've got to put the work in yourself.
Well, they're going to be dealing with Cody Fajardo, who has really turned this offense around, and also Justin Rankin and Javon Leake. You got to worry about Leake on special teams, and he can be effective in the running game as well. And Rankin had a great game in their last win as well. So I think Edmonton is going to run the ball on try to establish the run on Toronto. I don't think this is going to be a low scoring game for the Argos to win this game. I think they're going to have to score in the high 30s or even in the 40s.
The thing
I think it's going to be like a video video type game. Whoever ever has the ball last is going to win this game.
Well,
I think you froze up there, Nick.
okay. Yeah, sorry. The only thing I was just gonna say is that the one good thing too, though, that we saw in practice today was that both Thadric Hansen, defensive lineman, and Derek Sluka, defensive back, came
Yeah,
back and were full in practice. So getting those guys back will be huge. Having and I mean, when you've got Cam Judge and Winnie McManus there, along with the guys that are on the D line right now, they do have a pretty good run defense. So hopefully they can take advantage of that against Edmonton, because definitely on the defensive side, another component's going to be shutting down Rankin.
I know this isn't Argo related, Nick, but one of the former Argos linebackers who was traded to Calgary, Flo, he
Remote.
tore. Yeah, unfortunately, he's out for the year with an ACL.
Yeah, I mean, geez, like I know we talked about like being sad for guys who left in the off season, but like it's just crazy because like you look at Kadeem Carey, Jared Brinkman, uh, uh, Jake Serezna, now Flora Malade, Javon Leaks, questionable right now. I think Royce Meche missed some games in Edmonton. Like it's just been kind of crazy how so many former Argos on the teams last year are dealing with injuries. So like it's like you kind of, I know there was a lot of criticism in trading them, but it's just wild that like all those guys you traded to other teams have gotten injured playing for them. And like, if you had have kept all of them and they had got injured playing for the Argonauts still. And I mean, well, like we look at it on another perspective too. Like we chose to keep Winnie McManus, and he suffered a really bad injury early in the season and missed a number of games in the early part of the season. So like it's just a grim reminder that football is such a dangerous sport sometimes.
Nick, since we're talking about injuries, I know this isn't Argo related, but I had to bring it up with you. Quick thoughts on Winnipeg quarterback Zach Collaros, who left in a game against Saskatchewan, suspected injury from the sounds of it. Do you agree with TSN's Milt Stiegel that it's time for Collaros to retire with his concussion history and the latest one, apparently versus Saskatchewan?
Well, I don't know if it's been confirmed yet. Like I know they said head injury, but I don't know to what extent they're talking it as. Obviously, we don't know. But yeah, I mean it's a lot of parallels, I think, to how like you looked at when Ricky Ray got his injury and Anthony Calvillo got his injury. It's kind of looking similar-ish to that, but ultimately it's I guess it's Zach's decision, but it's like I think it's something that he definitely has to have like a serious sit down and talk with, because like it is I think if it keeps happening, like it is a, like I mentioned with what happened to Coxie, like it's not just the rest of your football career that's not at stake, it's the entire rest of your life where you're dealing with CTE related stuff. And like it's kind of that negative aspect of football that we sometimes see in former athletes, that it can just ruin their careers and their lives afterwards. So I think it's not anyone's choice to make but Zach's, but I definitely think he definitely needs to put some serious consideration to it.
Well, he's got a wife and kids, and the thing is, too, his family should come first over football. And second of all, he's going to be a CFL Hall of Fame quarterback. He's got what, 3 Grey Cup rings, 2 with Winnipeg, 1 with Toronto. He's played in 8 Grey Cups. To me, Zach Collaros has nothing left to prove on the field as a CFL quarterback and player. He's going to be a Bomber legend, and he's going to be in the CFL Hall of Fame. I'm not sure first ballot or not, but he's definitely a Hall of Famer. But he's got to put his health and family ahead of the game of football. And to me, I love seeing the guy play. He's one of the best quarterbacks, and he's a Hall of Famer. But his health and family comes first over football. And I do agree with Milt Stiegel that it is time for him to
Well,
retire. In my
yeah,
opinion, with Milt's.
yeah. I mean, bringing in like the legacy and everything, it definitely reminds me a lot of Ricky Ray's scenario when
Yep.
when he had to question those things himself after that hit he took in the opening week against
Calgary against
Calgary.
Calgary. Yep,
Yeah,
2018.
yeah. But I mean,
And that was a
yeah.
brutal. That was a brutal hit.
Well, I mean, you look at the hit he took before, and I mean, like You do got to think like over the last 5 years, what Zach Collaros has done is amazing because like don't forget like before that time in Winnipeg, Collaros had frankly accomplished nothing, and he
Yep.
like his time in Hamilton is his time in Saskatchewan, like
Yep.
very similar to
Whoa.
Trevor Harris in the way that it's kind of
Yep.
led to nothing in terms of championships, and
Yep.
then all it took was that one trade there from Toronto. And like I know we can discuss whether it was a good trade or not, but at the time, like part of the big thing was that he was in Toronto because he was able to get the care he needed being in Toronto, going to some of the best hospitals in Canada that are only in Toronto. That's what led to him being able to really recover. And of course, we don't know the extent, the nature of what happened. I know there's been debate over the hit itself. I thought it was a pretty clean hit, to be honest. I didn't think it was dirty. Like it wasn't like he led head down to spear Zach or anything. And unfortunately, I think it was a little bit of head contact, but also his head hitting the turf afterwards. But of course, that's not really my area to say as an expert on CTE. But yeah, like we just hope he's okay, and if he's well enough to play football again, then good for him, and I hope he keeps playing. And but if he makes that decision to call it, whether it's for the season to recover off season or to hang it up, then I respect that decision, and I don't think anybody should feel right or wrong to judge him on it. It's his decision alone.
Matt Dunnigan, great CFL legend. I would like to have Matt on our show. But Matt, I've spoken to you before. His career got cut short, not short, but he suffered a lot of concussions as well. And Brett Favre now has Parkinson's. I just think you're right. It's his decision, absolutely. But I think his family and his health comes first. So as much as I want to see him continue to play, and because he's a great quarterback and he's fun to watch, I'd rather see him have his health and be with his family. And he really doesn't have anything left to prove on the football field.
Yeah, let's
But as an athlete, Nick, it's like an addiction. It's hard to give it up.
Yeah, what I think's kind of scary or eye-opening is when you see it from guys who are, willing to donate their brains post-mortem to studies, clinical studies where they actually examine the impacts. And like going all the way back to the beginning of the show, like that's what ties into why kids don't play tackle football anymore. It comes to that fear of CTE and that stuff, which yeah, is its own topic that I don't really want to get into today too much. We can maybe save that for a different episode, but that's
Yeah.
what kind of has led, if you're looking at the core root of what's led to tackle football dying
Yep.
in youth leagues across Ontario, there's your
Yep.
number one answer, fear of CT. If you're okay with this, before we jump into anything you want to talk about, can I do my plug-in for the OUA
Yeah. Go
briefly?
ahead, Nick. Yeah. Go
Okay.
ahead.
Thank you. So I want to bring this up this week because while there were some really exciting football games that happened in the NFL, as I mentioned earlier, there was probably the greatest game that nobody watched, or maybe nobody is not the right word, but if you look at uh, maybe aside from myself and Bygone Boatman, James Fraser, York and U of T had an absolutely fantastic barn burner of the game. Game's known as the Argo Cup. It's it's basically the head to head like battle of Toronto for who's the best of the two teams. They always play each other once in the regular season for this reason, and it usually alternates between host cities. I was really lucky to go last year to the one in U of T, which York was able to pull an upset win, and then this year was an absolute barn burner of a game. Toronto took a 17-10 lead at halftime, and then was able to take a slim lead. York had so Toronto was up at 1 point, 23-15. York manages to score a touchdown and get a 2-point convert to tie at 23 all. This is with 3.5 minutes left in the game. 47 seconds left. York kicks a field goal to lead 26-23. With 2 seconds left on the clock, U of T gets their own field goal drive, similar to the Labor Day game in that intensity. And then, so the game goes to overtime, tied 26-all. Just like the CFL, they do the exact same kind of mini game format where they each get a turn on offense, defense on one side of the field, no special teams. York on their drive scores a touchdown, and they kick the field goal. U of T on their possession score a touchdown. Instead of kicking a field goal and extending it, they choose to go for two. Scott Barnett makes a perfect throw to a receiver going out, almost identical to the 2-point convert the Argos made in the game against Hamilton. The kid drops the football. A heartbreaking loss for U of T. An absolute sensational game. That was probably one of the best U Sports OUA games I've seen in a long time. You got to give a huge credit to the stat line. Scott Barnett, 39 for 55 for 409 yards and 3 TDs. Keegan Hall, 27 for 39, 330 yards and 1 TD. It was a amazing and incredible game. Some other honorable mentions I will also give while I'm here. Guelph battled back from being down 14-0 in the first quarter. They put up 31 points in the next 3 quarters to beat Windsor 31-17. Western and Ottawa. This was kind of a barn burner, but Western was able to rather soundly hold a lead against Ottawa. They won 55-29. I'll give a shout out to Ethan Dolby, who had 182 yards and 3 touchdowns. For Western, Evan Hillock only had 16 pass attempts, but made 11 of them for 208 yards and 3 more touchdowns. And then lastly, my Laurier Golden Hawks playing Queens. Laurier managed to win that game rather convincingly, 47-32. I will give a shout out in particular in this game. I've mentioned him before. I will shout out Ethan Jordan, who had another great receiving game and proved that he is not riding on the coattails of Taylor Gersma. He, within his own right, is going to be a star for the Ottawa Red Blacks in the future. And I will also give credit to Tayshawn Jackson, who had a punt return touchdown. He should have had about an extra 150 return yards, cut out the holding penalties. Do that, and they'll do even better. So that's my OUA rant for the day. And I'll give a shout out as well, an honorable mention to Carleton for beating UW.
Nick, before we wrap up the show, which game are you watching this weekend? Which OUA game is the game of the week in your opinion?
Hang on, let me bring up the schedule here. I just closed the wrong tab. I think okay, here we go. Laurier's playing Waterloo. Battle of Waterloo is going to be a big one. I think the one, so all of them are on the 13th this week. Laurier and Waterloo will be a good one, but I think Laurier should win that one pretty handily. Ottawa and Guelph should be a really good one because I think they're very similar, kind of behind Western and Laurier. Guelph has lost 2 games, but they've played Western and Laurier already, but they battled them, both of them, really tightly. So I think they could jump Ottawa for 2-2 record among both of them. And then the other one that should be interesting to watch is Queens and U of T. U of T has gotten a lot better than they were before. So that should be a really good game. And then McMaster on rest is playing Windsor. So that leaves York with the bye this week. So my games to watch will probably be Ottawa and Guelph and Queens and U of T. You can watch all the OUA games for a $40 subscription to OUA TV. You get a live stream pass for football for all the games. It's a really good deal. It's less than $1 a game if you plan on watching all of them. So I highly encourage, if you want to make an investment, help grow university football, pay $40 and get all those games on demand for a low rate.
And for me, besides the Argos game, I will be at the Hamilton game on Friday as media against Winnipeg and Hamilton, which I think is going to be a huge game. And also the Eagles Chiefs Super Bowl rematch. And the good news for the Eagles is their nose tackle Jalen Carter will be playing because the NFL said he suspended. He served his 1 game suspension because he technically didn't play in the first play of the game. So guys out there, if you want to get suspended in the NFL for 1 game, do it before the first play of the game because the NFL considers that a whole game. And he did get fined $57,000. But hey, Nick, thank you for the update on the OUA. And I should
Or
try to get out to a game in Guelph for Laurier because the football has improved the last few years.
yeah, oh yeah, or just have some integrity and don't spit at people.
That and it's happened in college football as well as the CFL, and yeah, I do agree with his punishment, and hopefully he learned his lesson. I don't. Roberto Alomar did that too with an umpire, 1986 with the Orioles before you were born. He spit on an umpire. I think that's the. I as much as I love the Eagles and I'm a huge Jalen Carter fan, he screwed up. He made a huge mistake, and hopefully he doesn't do it again because he could have cost the team a win. And you got to always remember football's a team sport. And I know it's an emotional sport, but you have to control your emotions. And I'm sure Ryan Dinwiddie tells that to the Toronto Argonaut players too. And
Well,
I'm
I'm
sure
sure.
when they play Hamilton again on October 4th, that rivalry is kind of like the Dallas Hamilton rivalry is in the NFL.
I'm
The
sure
Dallas Philly.
Dijon. I'm sure Dijon Brissett got ripped full of it after the Labor Day game because he almost
Yes.
cost them there. Well, we should
Yes.
maybe jump into the picks for this week.
Yes.
Chris, do you want to go first?
Okay, I'll go first. Let's see. Winnipeg at Hamilton, which I'll be covering as media. Winnipeg is 6-6. I'm not sure. Highly doubt Corleros is going to be playing in this game. I'm assuming Chris Stratler will be starting. Winnipeg 6-6. They're fighting for a playoff spot. Hamilton is 7-5. They broke their 3-game losing streak against Montreal. I'm going to go with Hamilton. I think Hamilton's finally going to beat the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Winnipeg has had Hamilton's number the last 5 or 6 years. So I'm going to go with the Bo Levi Mitchell and the Hamilton Tiger Cats over Winnipeg. I think it'll be 23-20. And then Ottawa, BC. I'm going to go with BC in the rematch at home, but I don't trust BC. They're one of those Jekyll and Hyde teams. They're
The
very inconsistent.
the line is insane for that game, by the way. Last time I heard, like on TSN this afternoon, it was like 9.5 points in favor of BC over Ottawa, which I think is absolutely
Too
insane.
much. Too much. Way too much. Yeah, so I've got Hamilton over Winnipeg. I'm going to go with BC over Ottawa in a rematch, but I think it's going to be closer than 9.5. Edmonton, Toronto. I'm going to go with the hometown Argonauts, but it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it's going to be 42 for the Argonauts and 40 for the Elks. I think it's going to be similar to the Buffalo Baltimore game. I just think it's going to be insane offensive. I just think it's going to whoever has the ball last, and you got Cody Fajardo going against Nick Arbuckle. I think it's going to be an offensive explosion. And then we got Montreal at Saskatchewan. Montreal is just playing bad football right now. They got no quarterback play. Saskatchewan, to me, as of now, it's still early, but as of now, Saskatchewan is the best team in the CFL. So I've got Saskatchewan. So I got Hamilton, BC, Toronto, Saskatchewan winning with Calgary on a bye week.
Yeah, I think the 10 o'clock start for the BC Ottawa games also should be on paper a huge advantage for BC. I'm going to go all home teams for this week. I just think, like, yeah, with the injuries, Winnipeg and Montreal are dealing with. Hamilton and Saskatchewan at home just seem like logical choices. And then for BC, I think it's hard to tell because like the late start. I definitely think Otto's going to cover 9.5 though, because I've mentioned it before. 10-point spreads are just insanely difficult to cover. But I got to think BC will play a little bit better while holding a lead than they were last week, especially at home. And then between Toronto and Edmonton, I'm also going to take the Argonauts. I think that they've made enough adjustments and they're on a positive upswing. Not to say Edmonton isn't either. That was a huge win in the Battle of Alberta, shutting down a pretty hot Calgary Stampeders team. But I think the Argonauts should hold the edge in this one if they play the way they have been the last couple of weeks. So it should make for a very interesting set of games. And when you really look at it, I had to do a double take, but there's only two more Argonaut home games there after this. There's the Edmonton game, there's the Montreal game, and there's the Hamilton game, and that's it.
Unless they can get a East semifinal game at BMO Field, but they'd have to finish ahead of Montreal for that.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. There's lots of time left. The thing with the schedule too is that before the Hamilton games, between Montreal and Hamilton, they play in BC, and then they play October 10th in Saskatchewan, and they play October 18th against Calgary, and then they're on the bye week for the final week. So if they do make the playoffs, they're going to have to sit out a week before and watch. So they're going to have to potentially leave fate into someone else's hands to see how the final brackets are. But they do have an extra week to 2 weeks of rest, depending on where they slot, because technically first place is still there with only a 2-game lead that Hamilton has over them.
Realistically, I think Hamilton will win the East. As much as I hate to say this, I think Hamilton still has enough of a cushion. I think Hamilton will win the East, but I think the Argos can get the second spot in the East, and I think the Argos could at least have one home game in the East semifinal. But I do think the East final is going to go through Hamilton, unless the Hamilton Tiger Cats have a collapse down the stretch. But we'll wait and see. Nick, finally, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say Montreal does get McLeod Bethel Thompson back off the injury list, but I don't think that is going to be enough to save them from Saskatchewan. They're playing too good right now.
We agree on that, Nick. And finally, where can our audience follow you on social media and any more articles you've written by the Argos?
Yeah, I haven't written many articles recently. I apologize. Been a busy 3 weeks. But you can always follow me at Nick Small 38 on Twitter, or on my YouTube channel by the same name.
I think Nick's froze up there. Edward Hearn, thank you for watching. Ed Hearn is watching on Instagram. He is going to be on my other show, Live with CDP, Sports and Entertainment Talk Show, on September 26th at 8 p.m. Nick, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I didn't realize I got cut out again. You can follow me at NickSmall38 on Twitter and on my YouTube channel, the same name. So look forward to seeing you. And as always, go Argos.
And before we wrap this show up, guys, too, if you're looking for Toronto Argonauts season tickets, you can contact the Toronto Argonauts account coordinator, Jada Christian, at 416-815-6139, or via email jada.christian@mlse.com. And a big shout out to Jada Christian for helping fix my Argos app and getting my tickets ready for Saturday's game. As you know, I do a lot of media coverage of the Argos freelance, but this Saturday I'm going to be going to the game as a fan with my two cousins from London, Ontario, sitting in section 115. Row 15, seats 4, 5, and 6. So if anybody watching this wants to come and meet CDP as a fan, I'm looking forward to going as a fan, getting my free T-shirt, having a beer, and hopefully an Argos win as well, Nick.
Yeah, hope so as well, Chris. Thanks for everybody for tuning in. I'm glad we had a lot of great discussion today. Don't burn your house down just because of this MLSE deal. Let's ease off a little bit. Let's not jump to conclusions, okay? That's the one thing I will leave you with. Have a great night, everybody. And as always, go Argos.
Go Argos. Thanks, Nick. All right, everybody, that concludes Season 4, Episode 11 of the Argo Bounce Podcast Show with co-hosts Nick Small and Chris Pomay, a weekly independent talk show devoted to the CFL's 19-time Grey Cup champion, your Toronto Argonauts. And I want to say thank you to everyone watching this live streamed on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter X, Instagram, and the Argo Bounce Podcast Show is available in audio form on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Good Pods, and where podcasts are available as well. And if you're a business out there and you'd like to advertise on the Argo Bounce Podcast Show, which is a weekly talk show, please contact Nick Small, through his Twitter X page, or you can email me at cpomay19@gmail.com if you'd like to get your business advertised on the Argo Bounce Podcast show, which is both available on video and audio forms as well. I just want to say thank you to Nick Small for coming on, and we're looking forward to our show next week. Not sure which day our time it is, and we're going to try to get another special guest on the Argo Bounce Podcast show too. And I want to say thank you to Adam Rita, the CFL legendary GM, head coach and offensive coordinator, and 6-time Grey Cup champion, for coming on our show on Friday as well. So thank you to Nick and everyone for watching and listening to this show. And again, if you want to go to the Argos Elks game, it's this Saturday, September 13th at 3 p.m. at BMO Field. You can get your tickets at you can get your tickets at argonauts.ca, or you can watch the game on TSN or listen to it on TSN 1050 on the radio with Mike Hogan and Ben Grant. Their pregame show will start at 2:30, kick off shortly after 3 o'clock. And it's a huge game for the 5-7 Elks, who are fighting for their playoff lives. And they have already defeated the Argos once this year at Commonwealth. And the Argonauts are 4-8. They're kind of technically tied with Ottawa right now for third in the CFL East. The Argos are now, a game and a half behind Montreal. So if Toronto wants to catch Montreal, they need this win as well. So 4-8 Argos, 5-7 Elks. Two teams, I think, that are better than their records, and I think this is going to be a great game. And I'm looking forward to going as a fan with my cousins Kyle and Ryan from London, Ontario, as well. Again, thank you everyone for watching and listening to the Argo Bounce Podcast show with co-host Nick Small and Chris Pomay. We'll see you back here next week with episode number 12, and hopefully an Argos win as well. Go Argos and enjoy the CFL action this weekend.
Scoring touchdowns for the blue on blue. The Argos will win for you. Full of fight and courage, you can't stop. They pile up the points until